you for joining us for Beginning Ukulele with Stuart. This is lesson number 4. Last week, we learned 2 more chords, the F chord and the G chord. Plus, we started playing the hit song by the Beatles, Let It Be. Today, we are going to continue on with Let It Be. But first, I have something very important to share and discuss with you. So, I've been working on this G chord. I've been working pretty hard on it, and it's been a struggle. I've had some thoughts about the G chord. I've had some dark thoughts about the G chord. And I think some of you might be having similarly upsetting thoughts and feelings about the G chord. So I thought we could use this time together and take advantage of this safe space we have to share our feelings about the G chord. To keep things civilized and to have everyone feeling welcome and supported and listened to, I've got these speaking sticks right here. They're just regular drumsticks. And the way this is going to work is the only person allowed to talk at any time is the person holding the speaking sticks. So since I'm holding the speaking sticks, I will begin. I feel that my hands and fingers are somehow simultaneously too big and too small to successfully play the G chord. I feel that my ukulele must be broken because apparently it's not possible to play the G chord in a way that sounds any good at all. I feel like the G chord isn't a real chord made for playing music, but instead it's a tool. It's an instrument of torture with the sole purpose of making me miserable. And that is how I feel about the G chord. But I'd like to hear how you feel about the G chord. So I'm going to hand you the speaking sticks, and then you share your feelings and concerns. I don't hear anything. This doesn't work. Okay. So in my experience, it's about 50-50 with people and the G chord, where about half the people don't have too much of a problem with it. So you might have friends that are playing the G chord, it's no problem. But then about half of the people, myself included, really struggle learning the G chord. So if you feel good about the G chord, that's great. Keep it up. We will meet up with you in a bit. If you're like me and you're having some problems with the G chord, let's talk about some of those problems and figure out some ways to take care of it. So one problem you might have is you might feel like your hand is just not the right size and shape. I have worked with so many ukulele students, from little kids with teeny little fingers to adults with massive hands, and every combination and everything in between. I've even worked with people who don't have full control over their fingers or who are even missing parts of their fingers. All of them, as long as they practice and keep it up, they're all able to successfully and comfortably play the G chord and every other chord. So you can let that go. It's going to be fine. Some of you might feel like there's something wrong with your ukulele because it's so hard to make the G chord sound good on it. There's a chance that something could be wrong with it, but almost certainly you just need to make sure you're in tune. If you're not sure you're in tune, check out my tuning video right here. If you still think there could be something wrong, you can send me a message or leave a comment. We'll get to the bottom of it. But now let's really get into it and talk about some of the issues getting to the chord and getting each note to sound right. So the biggest problem a lot of you are probably having is muted strings. That one's going to take some time, but I have some tips that'll help. We'll talk about that. Another problem is it might just be really slow for you to get to the G chord. We'll talk about that as well. And the last thing, but definitely not least, is it might be really painful when you play the G chord. Are you feeling it might be painful in your thumb, in your fingers, maybe even in your wrist, maybe all the way up to your neck. It might hurt. So that's one we definitely want to talk about because that's not good. So I have 3 tips for you. After we go through these 3 tips, a lot of those problems will be on their way to being taken care of. So the first tip is, see this right here? See this G chord? Looks pretty good, right? Looks pretty good? No, I don't like it. I don't like it. See how all my fingers are coming straight up to the string? They're parallel to the frets like that. When you do it like that, it's really hard to get all your fingers lined up in the right place. See, it's really hard to get my middle finger and my pointer finger both into the 2nd fret. It feels very awkward. So watch this. Oh, do you see that? See that angle I'm coming at the strings? So I'm not coming straight up like that. Tip number 1 is have your fingers at a 45-degree angle to the strings. So you can try doing what I just did. So I'm coming straight up and then I just tilt it over like that. If you're still having problems getting to this position, try this out. See this part of your hand right here, right where your pointer finger meets your palm? And then this part of the ukulele right here, this white part is called the nut. So take the nut of the ukulele, this part of your hand, and just rest it right there. Now, if I rest the ukulele right there, I curl in my fingers, I'm in position. That's how you want to be. That brings us to tip number 2. I just said it, which is curl your fingers. So see how my fingers are wrapped around the ukulele. I'm like this. You always want to keep your fingers curved like that. If you straighten out your fingers, then what happens? Not only does it feel really uncomfortable again, but now my fingers are laying flat and they're hitting other strings they're not supposed to hit. I've got muted strings all over the place. Keep your fingers curved. So now you can go through that little routine. Rest the ukulele right on that part of your hand. Curl your fingers in. That's a good looking G chord right there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now look at this. Look at this right here. This is tip number 3. Your wrist. Keep your wrist straight. If you find yourself going like this, or you're bringing it way up like that, that's bad. That's bad. See what's going on with my shoulder up here? It's like if I bend my wrist, my arm, my shoulder do all these weird things. You want to keep your wrist straight. Not only is that going to help make the chords easier to play and make them sound better, but it's going to be way better for you. If you're bending your wrist a lot, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to develop wrist issues. It's going to confuse. It's going to be bad. Don't think of your wrist as a stiff board. Think of it as just, what do you want to think of it as? Not a snake. Think of it as a, you want to think of it as a, think of your wrist as a relaxed wrist. Just think of it as a relaxed wrist. Oh, look at that. It's pretty straight. Oh, beautiful. There we go. So those are our 3 tips. We've got fingers coming at an angle to the strings. We've got curved fingers around the neck of the ukulele. And finally, a straight, relaxed wrist. So I'm calling those tips, but really, those are technique. We're talking about proper ukulele technique here. And just have that as a mental checklist. The next several times you're practicing, think, okay, are my fingers curved? Am I coming at an angle? How's my wrist looking? Just keep going through that checklist, and after a few more practice sessions, it'll just be second nature. I have one more thing to say about this G chord, but it's not really a tip. It's more wisdom. I'm very wise. You are going to need patience with this G chord. Even though I just gave you these 3 tips, it's not going to be a piece of cake right away. You're still going to need several practice sessions of going through all of these tips and techniques. You're going to have incremental improvement over the next several practice sessions. Keep working at it. Speaking of which, here's a little practice tip. Don't feel like you have to sit down and practice for a big long half-hour practice session. Do tiny little sessions spread throughout the week. Do 2 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 1 minute here. Maybe tomorrow night you're really getting into it. You practice for 20 minutes. Great. But then the next morning, you only do it for 2.5 minutes. If you do those tiny little practice sessions, you are going to get better so much faster than if you lump it all together into one big session. You will be amazed by how much you improve doing a bunch of 2-minute practice sessions. All right, enough technique for today. Let's learn some more of Let It Be by the Beatles. So this is going to be easy. We're going to add a few more chords to the end, but they're chords you already know. So let's review what we already have. We have the C chord, then the G, check out my straight wrist, curved fingers, A minor, and F. So that's what we were doing last week, just playing those chords over and over again. Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, here we go. Great, but there's more chords after that. After we play through those 4 chords, we want to play C again, then we want to go to G, but then we want to go straight to F, and then finally back to C. So once again, that was C, then G, then F, then back to C. So that means if we play all the chords we've learned for the song in a row, it's going to go like this. C, G, A minor, F, then C, G, F, C. Let's hear it with the words. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. All right, now we're getting somewhere with this. Here's an extra challenge. Try to play all these chords in a row from memory. You can write them down if you want. C, G, A minor, F, C, G, F, C. You can have them there as a reference. Maybe the next time you practice, you're looking at the paper as a reminder. But then after that, get rid of that paper and just do it from memory. The faster that you can have each of these chords memorized and the whole progression of chords memorized, the easier it's going to be and the smoother you're going to get from chord to chord. So try playing this from memory. Even if you don't quite feel like you know it that well, it'll be good for you in the long run. And that's it for today. So keep up the good work. Actually, don't. You guys might be doing terribly. I have no idea. But keep it up, and I'll see you next time. Bye.